Sir, we're investigating a hit and run on Constitution Drive. Were you driving tonight?
I don't know what you're talking
Your
about.
car has fresh front end damage. Witnesses saw it leave the scene.
You realize this is going to go really bad, right? I work for the Department of Justice.
Sir, have you had anything to drink tonight? Turn around and place your hands behind your back.
Joseph, one of the nation's top federal drug prosecutors, stared at the police officer through bloodshot eyes. It was July 4th, 2023, just after 9 p.m. Ruddy had just crashed his car into a parked vehicle and fled the scene. When police tracked him down at his home, he was visibly drunk. Blood alcohol content would later test at 0.17, more than twice Pennsylvania's legal limit of 0.08. But Joseph wasn't worried, because Joseph had something most drunk drivers don't have: power, authority, connections at the highest levels of law enforcement. He reached into his wallet and pulled out his U.S. Department of Justice business card. The card identified him as a senior trial attorney with the DOJ's Criminal Division Narcotic and Dangerous Drug Section, one of the federal government's top drug prosecutors, a man who'd built his career putting criminals in prison. And now, he was handing that card to a local police officer as if it were a get-out-of-jail-free card. "I work for the Department of Justice," Ruddy said. "The implication clear. I'm one of you. Let me go." The officer's body cam captured everything: the slurred speech, the smell of alcohol, the entitled assumption that a DOJ badge would make a DUI hit-and-run disappear, the complete lack of accountability from someone who demanded accountability from everyone else. The body cam footage would eventually go viral. The Department of Justice Inspector General would investigate. News outlets across the country would cover the story. And Joseph would face almost nothing: DUI charges dismissed, reduced to reckless driving, probation, no jail time, still employed by the Department of Justice as of August 2024. This is a story of how one of America's top federal prosecutors, a man who spent his career prosecuting drug crimes and demanding harsh sentences, got caught driving drunk after a hit and run, tried to use his government position to escape consequences, and largely succeeded. Before we dive deeper into this absolutely shocking story, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from, your country, your state, wherever you are. And if you believe in holding authority figures accountable when they abuse their power, hit that subscribe button. July 4th, 2023, Independence Day. Newtown Township, Pennsylvania, an affluent suburb about 25 miles north of Philadelphia. Joseph, 40 years old, was celebrating with friends and family. Barbecue, fireworks, and alcohol. Lots of alcohol. Ruddy was a rising star at the Department of Justice, a senior trial attorney in the Narcotic and Dangerous Drug Section. He prosecuted major drug trafficking organizations. He'd worked on high-profile cases involving international cartels, pharmaceutical companies, and organized crime. He was respected, well-compensated, and powerful. But that evening, Ruddy made a decision that would expose the hypocrisy at the heart of America's justice system. Around 9:15 p.m., Ruddy got into his vehicle, heavily intoxicated, and started driving home. He was weaving, his reaction time delayed, his judgment impaired. Everything he'd prosecuted people for, he was now doing himself. On Constitution Drive, the irony of the street name would not be lost on anyone. Ruddy crashed into a parked car, hard enough to cause significant damage to both vehicles, hard enough that the sound echoed through the neighborhood. And instead of stopping, checking for injuries, calling police, or taking responsibility, Joseph, federal prosecutor, officer of the court, someone sworn to uphold the law, fled the scene. Hit and run. A crime, adding to the DUI he was already committing. Witnesses saw the crash. They saw Joseph's vehicle speed away. They got a partial license plate. They called 911. Newtown Township Police responded immediately. They found the damaged parked vehicle. They ran the partial plate. And they got an address: Joseph S. home, just a few blocks away. When police arrived at Joseph's house, they found him in his driveway. And the body cam footage of what happened next would expose everything wrong with how the justice system treats its own. Officers William and Jessica Torres pulled up to Joseph's residence at 9:42 p.m. Their body cams were activated and recorded. They could see Joseph's vehicle in the driveway, front-end damage consistent with hitting another car, fresh damage. Paint transfer is visible even in the evening light. Ruddy was standing near his front door, clearly trying to get inside before police made contact. "Sir, Newtown Township Police. We need to speak with you about a vehicle accident." Ruddy turned around. Under the porch light, the officers could immediately see signs of intoxication. Bloodshot eyes, unsteady stance, the smell of alcohol wafting from him even from several feet away. "What accident?" Ruddy asked, his words slightly slurred. "Your vehicle was involved in a hit-and-run on Constitution Drive about 20 minutes ago. Were you driving?" I don't know what you're talking about." Officer William pointed to the damaged vehicle. "Sir, your car has fresh damage consistent with the accident. We have witnesses who saw your vehicle leave the scene. Were you driving this vehicle tonight?" Joseph's face showed calculation. He was drunk, but still smart enough to know he was in serious trouble. DUI, hit and run. Both crimes. Both are chargeable. Both potentially career-ending for a federal prosecutor. So he made a choice that would define everything that followed. He reached for his wallet and pulled out his Department of Justice business card. Officer William S. Bodycam captured the moment clearly. Joseph swaying slightly, held out his DOJ business card like it was a diplomatic passport granting immunity. "I work for the Department of Justice," Ruddy said. "I'm a federal prosecutor. Senior trial attorney, narcotic and dangerous drug section." The implication was obvious. "I'm one of you. I'm law enforcement. Let this go." Officer William took the card, glanced at it, and handed it back. His voice remained professional but firm. "Sir, I understand your position, but right now, I need to determine if you were operating a vehicle while impaired. Have you been drinking tonight?" "I had a couple drinks earlier. Hours ago. I'm fine." "Sir, you smell strongly of alcohol. Your eyes are bloodshot, and your vehicle has fresh damage. I need you to submit to field sobriety tests." Joseph's demeanor shifted. The friendly, we're all law enforcement here, approach wasn't working, so he tried intimidation. "You realize this is going to go really bad, right? I work for the Department of Justice. Do you understand what that means?" Officer Torres stepped forward. "Sir, your employment doesn't exempt you from DUI laws. We need you to complete field sobriety tests, or we'll have probable cause to arrest you for suspicion of DUI. This is ridiculous. I'm a federal prosecutor. I put criminals in jail. And you're treating me like someone who crashed into a parked car and fled?" William interrupted. "Because that's what witnesses say happened." Joseph's face reddened. Anger mixed with intoxication, mixed with the dawning realization that his DOJ card wasn't working. But he still didn't understand that the body cam was capturing everything, and that his entitled behavior would eventually be seen by millions. Officer William attempted to conduct field sobriety tests. The body cam footage shows 3 standard tests used to assess impairment. Horizontal gaze nystagmus. AGN, the officer holds a pen or light and asks the subject to follow it with their eyes. Impaired individuals show involuntary jerking of the eyes. Ruddy failed. His eyes showed clear nystagmus, the jerking motion indicating intoxication. Walk and turn. The subject must walk a straight line heel to toe, turn and return. Ruddy stumbled, lost balance, stepped off the line, failed. 1 leg stand. The subject must stand on 1 leg for 30 seconds while counting. Ruddy couldn't maintain balance for more than 5 seconds before putting his foot down. Failed. All 3 tests showed obvious signs of impairment. Combined with the smell of alcohol, bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, and the crashed vehicle, probable cause for DUI was overwhelming. "Sir, based on your performance on these tests, I have probable cause to believe you're operating a vehicle while impaired. I'm placing you under arrest for DUI and leaving the scene of an accident." Joseph's eyes widened. "You're arresting me? Do you know who I am?" There it was, the phrase that ends careers. The entitled assumption that position and power makes someone immune from consequences. "Yes, sir, we know who you are. You're under arrest. Turn around, hand behind your back." This is insane. I'm calling my supervisor. I'm calling the U.S. attorney. This is going to blow back on you. But the handcuffs clicked shut anyway. And Joseph, federal prosecutor who'd arrested countless people for drug crimes, was now being arrested himself. At Newtown Township Police Station, Ruddy was offered a breathalyzer test. Under Pennsylvania's implied consent law, drivers who refuse chemical testing face automatic license suspension and other penalties. Joseph, still drunk but thinking strategically, initially refused. I'm not taking any tests. I know my rights. You don't have enough evidence. Officer William explained the consequences. Sir, refusal results in automatic license suspension for 1 year, regardless of whether you're convicted of DUI. I'm advising you to take the test. Ruddy reconsidered. Maybe he thought his BAC wasn't that high. Maybe he thought cooperation would help. Maybe he was too drunk to think clearly. Fine, I'll take it. The breathalyzer result, 0.17 BAC, more than twice Pennsylvania's legal limit of 0.08. Not borderline, not questionable, dramatically over the limit. At 0.17 BAC, most people experience significant impairment. Reduced reaction time, impaired judgment, decreased motor control. Exactly the impairments that make driving dangerous and illegal. Ruddy stared at the result. His face went pale. At 0.17, there was no arguing he was fine to drive. No claiming the officers were mistaken. The breathalyzer was definitive. This can't be right. The machine must be wrong. Sir, the breathalyzer is calibrated and certified. The result is accurate. You're more than twice the legal limit. Ruddy was formally charged with DUI, highest rate of alcohol, 0.16% or higher, leaving the scene of an accident, reckless driving, multiple traffic violations. He was processed, fingerprinted, photographed. His mugshot would eventually leak online. A disheveled federal prosecutor who looked exactly like the people he'd spent his career prosecuting. But Ruddy still believed he could make this go away. He was wrong about that. And he was very wrong about the Bodycam footage staying private. Joseph was released on bail around 2 a.m. on July 5, 2023. One of his first calls was to his supervisor at the Department of Justice. What exactly was said in that call isn't public record. But what happened next suggested Ruddy was trying to manage the situation quietly. Ruddy hired an expensive criminal defense attorney, someone with connections to Pennsylvania prosecutors and judges, someone who specialized in getting charges reduced or dismissed for high-profile clients. The strategy was clear. Negotiate a plea deal quietly, get charges reduced, hope the story never goes public. For several months, this strategy worked. The local media didn't cover the arrest. The Bodycam footage wasn't released. The Department of Justice wasn't notified officially. Ruddy continued working as a federal prosecutor. He showed up to court, prosecuted drug cases, argued for harsh sentences against defendants, all while facing DUI and hit-and-run charges himself. The hypocrisy was staggering. Ruddy was prosecuting people for drug possession while he'd driven drunk and fled a crash scene. He was arguing for accountability for others while trying to avoid accountability himself. But someone at Newtown Township Police Department wasn't comfortable with the quiet resolution. Someone thought the public deserved to know that a top federal prosecutor had been arrested for DUI hit and run and was trying to use his position to make it disappear. In October 2023, 3 months after the arrest, an anonymous tip went to a local news reporter, and everything Joseph had tried to keep quiet was about to explode into the national spotlight. October 12, 2023, WPVI-TV Philadelphia received an anonymous tip about Joseph S. arrest. The reporter, investigative journalist Sarah Chun, started digging. She filed public records requests for the arrest report, Bodycam footage, and court documents. Newtown Township Police, bound by Pennsylvania's open records law, had to comply. Chin reviewed the Bodycam footage and immediately recognized the story's significance. A top federal drug prosecutor, arrested for DUI hit and run, handing police his DOJ business card to try to escape consequences. On October 18, 2023, WPVI aired the story. Federal prosecutor arrested for DUI, tried to use position to avoid charges. The story included portions of the Bodycam footage. Ruddy handing over his DOJ card, saying, "You realize this is going to go really bad," failing sobriety tests, and the breathalyzer showing 0.17. The reaction was immediate. A federal prosecutor drove drunk, crashed into a car, fled, and tried to use his DOJ badge to get out of it, and he's still prosecuting people. This is exactly why people don't trust the justice system. One set of rules for regular people, another for prosecutors and cops. He puts people in prison for drug crimes, but thinks his DUI should just disappear? The national media picked up the story within hours. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Everyone covered it. The Department of Justice could no longer ignore the situation, and the Inspector General's investigation was about to uncover just how hard Ruddy had tried to use his position to make the charges disappear. The Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General, OIG, opened an investigation in October 2023. The OIG investigates misconduct by DOJ employees, including prosecutors who abuse their positions. Investigators reviewed the Bodycam footage, phone records showing Joseph calls after arrest, emails between Ruddy and his supervisors, communications between Joseph's attorney and local prosecutors, DOJ ethics policies regarding criminal conduct by employees. What they found was damning. Ruddy had called his supervisor within hours of his arrest and framed the situation as a misunderstanding and minor traffic incident. He downplayed the DUI, didn't mention fleeing the scene, and suggested the local police had overreacted. He'd asked his supervisor not to file an official report with the DOJ's Professional Responsibility Office until the legal situation was resolved, essentially asking for time to make the charges go away before the DOJ found out. His attorney had contacted the Bucks County District Attorney's Office with carefully worded messages emphasizing Joseph's position and suggesting that prosecution would harm ongoing federal drug cases. The OIG investigators recognized these actions as attempts to use his DOJ position to influence the outcome of his criminal case, a clear violation of federal ethics rules. On December 15, 2023, the OIG issued a report finding that Joseph had misused his official position by presenting his DOJ business card to police during the arrest, making statements suggesting his position should influence how he was treated, using his DOJ title in communications with prosecutors, attempting to delay internal DOJ notification until after resolving criminal charges. The report recommended disciplinary action up to and including termination, but the DOJ would prove more interested in protecting its own than delivering accountability. While the OIG investigation proceeded, Joseph's criminal case moved through Pennsylvania courts. His expensive attorney negotiated with Bucks County prosecutors for months. The original charges: DUI highest rate, 0.17 BAC, leaving scene of accident, reckless driving, traffic violations. If convicted on all counts, Ruddy faced up to 6 months jail time, $5,000 in fines, 18-month license suspension, and a permanent criminal record. But Joseph's attorney worked a deal. On January 8, 2024, 7 months after the arrest, Ruddy appeared in court for a plea hearing. The DUI charges, the most serious charges, the ones supported by a 0.17 breathalyzer, were dismissed. Ruddy pleaded no contest to reckless driving, summary offense; careless driving, the sentence, 12 months probation, $500 fine, plus court costs, mandatory alcohol safety course, no jail time, no license suspension beyond the temporary administrative suspension. In exchange for the plea, the hit-and-run charge was dropped. The DUI charge was dropped. The breathalyzer evidence showing 0.17 BAC was rendered irrelevant. Joseph, who'd driven drunk, crashed into a parked car, and fled the scene, was convicted of driving carelessly. The same prosecutor who demanded harsh sentences for drug defendants had negotiated a sweetheart plea deal that made his drunk driving almost disappear from his criminal record. When news of the plea deal broke, public reaction was furious. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, issued a statement. Joseph had a blood alcohol level more than twice the legal limit. He crashed into a parked vehicle and fled. He should have faced DUI charges to the fullest extent. This plea deal sends a message that prosecutors protect their own while demanding accountability from everyone else. Legal ethics experts weighed in. This plea deal undermines public confidence in the justice system. If a federal prosecutor can get DUI charges dismissed despite a 0.17 breathalyzer, what message does that send about equal justice under law? Social media erupted. He prosecutes drug crimes for a living, but gets a slap on the wrist for drunk driving. The system is rigged. If you or I drove drunk and crashed, we go to jail. But a DOJ prosecutor gets probation and a $500 fine. Disgusting. The Bodycam shows him trying to use his DOJ badge to get out of it. And it worked. Pennsylvania victim advocacy groups called for State Attorney General to review the plea deal, arguing that Bucks County prosecutors had given preferential treatment. But no review happened. The plea deal stood. And Joseph remained employed by the U.S. Department of Justice. February 2024, 8 months after his DUI arrest, 2 months after his sweetheart plea deal, Joseph was still working as a senior trial attorney at the Department of Justice. He'd been removed from his supervisory role, no longer overseeing other prosecutors or running high-profile cases. But he was still employed, still collecting his $170,000 plus annual salary, still prosecuting cases. The Department of Justice refused to comment on Joseph's employment status, citing privacy concerns and ongoing personnel matters. But public records showed Joseph's name still appearing on DOJ court filings in early 2024. He was still representing the United States in criminal prosecutions. The irony was crushing. A man who'd driven drunk, crashed into a car, fled the scene, and tried to use his government position to escape consequences, was still authorized to prosecute others for crimes. Defense attorneys in cases Ruddy was prosecuting started filing motions. The government is represented by a prosecutor who was arrested for DUI and leaving the scene of an accident. His credibility is compromised. His presence in this case creates a conflict of interest. Federal judges were put in an awkward position. Technically, Joseph's plea deal was for reckless driving, not DUI, since those charges were dropped. He had no DUI conviction on his record. His license to practice law remained active. But everyone knew what had actually happened. The body cam footage was public. The breathalyzer result was documented. The attempts to use his DOJ position were confirmed by the Inspector General. Joseph's continued employment became a symbol of everything wrong with accountability in the justice system. But the DOJ still refused to fire him. March 2024. Congressional representatives started asking questions. Representative Raja Krishnamurti, Democrat, Illinois, member of the House Oversight Committee, sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland. It has come to my attention that a senior trial attorney in DOJ's criminal division was arrested for DUI with a blood alcohol content of 0.17, attempted to use his official position to influence the outcome, and subsequently received a favorable plea agreement. This individual reportedly remains employed by the DOJ. I request a briefing on what disciplinary actions have been taken and why this employee has not been terminated. Senator Josh Hawley, Republican, Missouri, raised the issue during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. Mr. Attorney General, how can the Department of Justice maintain credibility when prosecuting crimes if your own prosecutors are committing crimes and facing no real consequences? The American people deserve an answer. Attorney General Garland's response was careful and vague. The department takes allegations of employee misconduct very seriously. Personnel matters are handled through appropriate channels, and I cannot comment on individual cases. But I assure you that all DOJ employees are held to the highest ethical standards. The non-answer satisfied no one. Advocacy groups increased pressure. DUI victim families held a press conference outside DOJ headquarters demanding Joseph termination. Legal ethics organizations filed complaints with the D.C. Bar Association seeking disciplinary proceedings. But still, the Department of Justice protected Joseph. And the reason why would eventually become clear. Why wouldn't the Department of Justice fire Joseph despite overwhelming evidence of misconduct? The answer revealed uncomfortable truths about how institutions protect their own. Reason 1, legal liability. If the DOJ fired Joseph, he could sue for wrongful termination. His attorney could argue the plea deal showed the criminal conduct wasn't severe enough to warrant firing. The litigation could be expensive and embarrassing. Reason 2, precedent. Firing Ruddy might create pressure to fire other DOJ employees with criminal records or misconduct allegations. The department had quietly tolerated other prosecutors' indiscretion for years. Joseph's case was just the first to go viral. Reason 3, institutional ego. Admitting that a senior trial attorney had abused his position and needed to be fired would be admitting DOJ's vetting and oversight failed. Easier to keep him employed and weather the criticism. Reason 4, practical concerns. Ruddy had worked on dozens of high-profile cases. His testimony might be needed in ongoing prosecutions or appeals. Firing him could complicate those cases. Reason 5, union protections. Federal employees have significant job protections. Termination requires extensive documentation, progressive discipline, and appeals processes. Even with clear misconduct, firing takes time. So the DOJ chose a path of least resistance. Remove Ruddy from high-profile cases, strip his supervisory duties, but keep him employed in a reduced capacity, hoping the story would fade from public attention. It was institutional self-preservation disguised as due process, and it nearly worked. The strategy of waiting out the public outrage might have worked if not for continued media pressure, and one critical development. Defense attorneys started successfully using Joseph's conduct to challenge DOJ prosecutions. In March 2024, a federal judge in a major drug trafficking case granted a defense motion to recuse Ruddy from prosecution, finding his demonstrated willingness to misuse his official position creates an appearance of impropriety that undermines public confidence in this prosecution. In April 2024, another judge issued a similar ruling, noting that a prosecutor who attempted to leverage his DOJ credentials to escape DUI charges lacks the ethical standing to demand accountability from defendants. 2 cases, then 4, then 6. Judges across multiple jurisdictions were removing Ruddy from prosecutions or questioning DOJ's judgment and keeping him on cases. The institutional calculus shifted. Ruddy had become a liability, not an asset. His presence on cases was causing more problems than his expertise was solving. On May 15, 2024, 10 months after his arrest, sources reported that Joseph had resigned from the Department of Justice to pursue opportunities in the private sector. The resignation was framed as voluntary. No admission that he'd been forced out. No acknowledgement of misconduct beyond the Inspector General's report. But everyone knew the truth. Ruddy hadn't resigned. He'd been pushed out after months of embarrassment, after judges started removing him from cases, after his continued employment became untenable. And even in resignation, Ruddy received benefits most federal employees don't get. Joseph's resignation came with terms that outraged people familiar with the case. He was allowed to resign rather than be fired, which meant no termination on his employment record, eligible for retirement benefits. He'd worked for DOJ for 15-plus years. No bar from future federal employment. Preservation of his law license. No automatic disbarment. He also reportedly negotiated 3 months of additional salary as terminal leave, full health insurance coverage through the end of 2024, positive references for future employment. In exchange, Ruddy agreed to resign effective immediately, waive any claims against DOJ for wrongful termination, not disparage the department publicly. So Ruddy walked away from DOJ with his pension intact, his law license active, and his future employability preserved. Compare this to how defendants he prosecuted were treated. Federal mandatory minimums, ensuring prison time, asset forfeiture, seizing property without trial, enhancement charges to pressure plea deals, lifelong criminal records affecting employment. Ruddy had demanded harsh accountability from defendants while negotiating gentle treatment for himself. And he landed on his feet in a way that proved the system takes care of its own. By July 2024, Joseph had joined a private law firm specializing in white-collar criminal defense and regulatory compliance. The firm's press release announcing his hiring made no mention of his DUI arrest, the hit and run, or his resignation from the DOJ under pressure. It emphasized his extensive experience prosecuting complex drug trafficking organizations and his deep understanding of federal criminal procedure. Joseph's new salary was reportedly $400,000 plus annually, more than double his DOJ pay. His clients? Corporations facing regulatory investigations, executives accused of white-collar crimes, defendants who could afford expensive attorneys who knew how the system worked and how to manipulate it. The same expertise Ruddy used to prosecute people was now being sold to help wealthy defendants avoid prosecution. And his DOJ credentials, the same credentials he tried to use to escape his DUI charges, were now marketing tools. Former senior DOJ prosecutor carried weight with clients and judges. Legal ethics professors noted the revolving door problem. Ruddy spent 15 years at DOJ prosecuting crimes, building relationships with judges and prosecutors. Now he's leveraging those relationships to defend people accused of similar crimes. The system rewards his behavior with huge salaries while claiming to serve justice. But the final insult to accountability came when Joseph's law license review concluded with no discipline. The D.C. Bar Association's Office of Disciplinary Counsel reviewed complaints against Joseph filed by legal ethics organizations and private citizens. The complaints alleged professional misconduct, DUI and hit and run, misuse of official position, conduct undermining public confidence in legal profession. Under D.C. bar rules, attorneys can be disciplined for criminal conduct or ethical violations even if they don't lose their license to practice law. But on August 20th, 2024, the Disciplinary Council issued its decision. While Mr. Joseph's conduct was inappropriate, his conviction was for reckless driving, a summary offense, not DUI. The DUI charges were dismissed, given the relatively minor nature of his conviction and the fact that he's no longer employed in a prosecutorial role. We find that a private admonishment is sufficient discipline. No suspension or public sanctions are warranted. A private admonishment, a slap on the wrist delivered in private that no one would ever see. Never mind that the DUI charges were only dismissed because of a favorable plea deal. Never mind the 0.17 breathalyzer. Never mind fleeing a crash scene. Never mind trying to use his DOJ position to escape consequences. The Bar Association looked at the technical conviction, reckless driving, and decided it wasn't serious enough to warrant real discipline. So Ruddy kept his law license, kept his high-paying job, and faced no meaningful professional consequences. As of late 2024, here's the status of everyone involved in this story. Joseph, age 41, working at a prestigious white-collar defense firm, earning $400,000 plus annually, law license active and in good standing. No criminal record DUI. Charges dismissed via plea deal. Conviction, reckless driving, summary offense. Continues practicing law with no restrictions. The victim, owner of the parked car Ruddy hit, received insurance payment for vehicle damage. Never received apology from Ruddy. Watched Ruddy face minimal consequences. Officers William and Torres, who arrested Ruddy, continue serving with Newtown Township Police. Were praised by their department for professional handling of the arrest. Faced no retaliation despite arresting a powerful federal prosecutor. Newtown Township Police Department released Bodycam footage under public records law. Stood by the arrest despite pressure. No consequences for holding a DOJ prosecutor accountable. The Department of Justice allowed Ruddy to resign rather than firing him. Made no public statement about his misconduct beyond the IG report. Continues employing other prosecutors with undisclosed misconduct issues. Bucks County prosecutors defended the plea deal as appropriate given the circumstances. Faced criticism but no investigation. Continue making plea deals with defendants. The Bodycam footage remains online. Anyone can watch Joseph hand police his DOJ business card. Anyone can see him fail sobriety tests. Anyone can see the breathalyzer showing 0.17. But none of that mattered. The system protected him anyway. July 4th, 2023. Joseph drove drunk, crashed into a parked car, and fled the scene. Blood alcohol. 0.17, more than twice the legal limit. He was caught, arrested. The body cam captured everything. And he tried to use his Department of Justice credentials to make it disappear. You realize this is going to go really bad, right? Those words, captured on Bodycam, showed Ruddy believed his position would protect him from consequences. He was right. Here's what happened to Joseph. DUI charges dismissed. Conviction: reckless driving, summary offense. Sentence: 12 months probation, $500 fine. No jail time. No license suspension. Allowed to resign from DOJ, not fired. Retirement benefits preserved. Law license intact. Now earning $400,000 plus at private firm. Here's what happens to regular people arrested for DUI at 0.17 BAC. Convicted of DUI, charges not dismissed. Jail time, often mandatory at 0.17 BAC. $1,000 to $5,000 fines. 12 to 18-month license suspension. Permanent criminal record. Job loss. Difficulty finding future employment. Higher insurance rates for years. The contrast is stark. The hypocrisy is complete. Joseph spent 15 years prosecuting drug crimes, arguing for harsh sentences, demanding accountability from defendants. He put people in prison for possession of drugs while claiming they deserved it because choices have consequences. Then he chose to drive drunk, crash into a car, flee the scene, and use his government position to escape those consequences. And the system let him. This is American justice in 2024. Two systems. One for the powerful, connected, and wealthy. Another for everyone else. Bodycam footage that documents everything. Evidence that proves misconduct. And still, accountability remains optional for those with the right credentials. Joseph handed a police officer his Department of Justice business card like it was a get-out-of-jail-free card. And it was. The Bodycam showed the truth. The system ignored it anyway. Joseph's story isn't about one corrupt prosecutor. It's about a justice system designed to protect its own while punishing everyone else. He drove drunk. He fled a crash. He tried to use his power to escape consequences. And he succeeded. The Bodycam captured everything. Justice delivered nothing. Joseph continues practicing law at a private firm as of 2024. He faces no professional restrictions. His conviction is for reckless driving, not DUI, despite a .17 breathalyzer test. The Bodycam footage of him handing police his DOJ business card has been viewed millions of times. The department that employed him allowed him to resign with benefits. The Bar Association gave him a private warning. This is what accountability looks like for federal prosecutors. Viral videos, minimal consequences, and career advancement. The system protects its own. Always.